Hi guys, it's Jamar. So I have some updates about the Nano engine. I think I made the last video like probably close to like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Um, so basically what I've been doing was kind of finishing up this GUI system. Most of it was already in place, how I made it. Like kind of when I started out with like using the child item kind of relationship. So there wasn't much to add except aesthetics and a few listeners, such as like let's just go here, the on callback listener, on key press listener, and yeah, let me just and uh, on drag listener. So those are the three listeners I added. You can see there's also scroll callback listener here, but I'm not really doing much with that one yet. Um, so you can see there's a few listeners here, and basically. They're mainly for GUI items, so the user had to implement their own callback listeners by polling the events in on input function if it's not a UE item, essentially. That way it's like really fast and it only handles the events for just the GUI items. So for instance, if there's a particle system or something like that, um, it's not going to, check those if some particle was clicked or something. So in the cursor position callback, this is basically the drag events here. Since only one thing can be dragged, I have it set where only one item gets basically assigned and like its event gets handled. Same with the key callback here. Um, so let me see here. I'll just show this. So currently, you can see we have a file basically showing the nav bar, the context window, which essentially you just kind of has an outline and you kind of could just pass in things to it. A slider right here, and essentially, uh, there we go. And so essentially, you can move this around and get the slider offset, and the parent component can basically like use that information to do something based on like what the user's callback is inside of the when they pass it into the slider on the on drag event. And here we have a text editor. So I can be like, I can just pass in some text there. Um, so you can see it's really responsive. So um, now it's kind of slow because this verticalist component has a lot of options in it. Um, you see there's a lot of options in here. So it's a little slow, but you can see I have a callback function here set. So um, this verticalist component has a lot of objects and things kind of happening with it. So I mean the frame rate's a little bad when it comes to this component here, but for the most part, everything is functioning at a high level. You test these ones separately as well, so I'm really happy with it. Obviously, you wouldn't have all this stuff in practice open at the same time in an actual application. You'd probably have one or something else open, so the frame rate shouldn't really tank like that. But basically, this is pretty much like the main fundamental components that I feel like you would need in an application. um, Basically a context window for um, basically anything in the file drop down. Like you can have a list that shows like different options. You don't have to put a title if you don't want to. Um, Basically, you have a text editor component for any like text you want the user to pass in. Actually, each one of these are buttons. So um, basically, um, you have a button component that you can use, even though it's essentially a text box. But it's just I wanted to separate the logic because I wanted to have one thing that was like recognized as clickable and one thing that wasn't. Obviously, we have the scroll bar component there. We have the slider here. And then obviously I mentioned the text editor. So these are like the basic fundamental like UI components that I feel someone needs to make something. Um, so I kind of set it up in a way to where you can kind of look at what's in there because each one is kind of different in what it does. Um, and basically like try to make your own if you want to, and it still should work the same way. These are just some of the actual um, components that I thought you would definitely need to get started. So I'm really happy with this. So in terms of what's next, I'm not quite sure if I want to do 3D rendering with OBJ files just yet. I was thinking about doing that. 3D is already set up in terms of you can like pass in a bunch of object primitives and it will render um, and give the illusion that it's 3D. But um, rendering entire OBJ models isn't really set up with the pipeline yet in terms of layers, because there's a max item count. So I'd have to create a separate layer and inherit the original layer and kind of just have it the pipeline run differently. But then on top of that, I would have to enable depth testing, which is I think just simply one or two OpenGL calls. And so that's like what's next, as well as me making an animation class to kind of make some of the transformations a little more smoother for the user, so they don't have to do their own math on how long they want something to take and then when to take it out of the loop. I can kind of do that for them. So um, that's kind of what's next for that. So that's really all I had to share in this video. Quite happy with how this turned out, actually. A lot of these were like kind of just pushing in certain constants that felt right. And that's kind of what it is for these specific UE components because like it's kind of hard to really know what looks right until you really test it. So a lot of this is kind of just like constants and stuff, but each one is specific, so it's kind of hard to make it generic. Unless I was using like some type of dynamic component that like I can pass like different alignment information into, which I didn't really set up. Um, because I didn't feel like it was needed for what I was trying to do. This is just more like the basic components. So I hope you enjoyed it, and the code is on GitHub at fentacoder/nanoengine.git on GitHub. So you can go and check it out if you want to. So yeah, until next time.